Good morning to all of you. It's really nice to see you once again. And I see some new faces also. Today we are going to see three ministries, the roles and responsibilities of three ministries proposed by these goals of SDG goals proposed by UN. One is no poverty, and the second one is zero hunger, and the third one is reduce inequalities. And these three ministries are somewhat connected to each other. And there are some more ministries also connected to, like employment and decent income and all that. And again, as we have seen in the first session, every problem is connected to another one. No problem is an individual problem. It may sound individual problem. Poverty may sound to be an individual problem, but it is not an individual problem, but it is connected with so many other problems. So similarly, the responsibilities of the ministries, what we are going to see today, is connected very much. And we will see one by one. And when we come to no poverty, there is perhaps a question, how children can address poverty? How children can work addressing poverty? We know the whole world is fighting against poverty. All the countries fighting against poverty. There are hundreds and thousands of NGOs all over the world fighting against poverty. Here we are talking about children trying to do something about poverty. And I always used to say in my seminars, we try to fight against poverty without realizing what poverty is, first of all, and how it is caused. So for the children minister, they create awareness first how the poverty exists. It is not the lack of things what is needed. We have enough. The whole world produces enough, but still there is poverty. Why? I want to quote one thing here by the 34th President of United States, Eisenhower. He was the general before he became the the president, and he was leading US in World War II. And he says, every gun that is made, every warship which is launched, every rocket which is fired, every missiles which is directed towards enemy signifies, in the final sense, a theft from the plates of the hunger and the clothes of the unclothed. See how beautifully it is put. And this is what we try to give to the ministers in Children's Parliament. Poverty is not because people, as usually people understand, that lack of opportunities or lack of resource or lack of money or lack of employment. No. Everything is there in full. But there is some system built here which keeps on robbing these opportunities of this one section of the society, those who are marginalized or vulnerable, and keep on accumulating. And when we talk about capitalism, some may not agree to that, but that is the root cause also again. And this awareness is given to the children. How poverty, becomes existing. The cause for poverty. how children can understand poverty, because there is no chance for them to understand poverty when they grow old. When they are young itself, we have to give them the proper understanding that they understand and create awareness among themselves. That the minister's role is to learn the cause of poverty, in the impacts of poverty, and create awareness to the ministers, other ministers, and to the parents and the adults, so that they understand what poverty means. Then what they do, they try to create certain advocacy, try to create, these ministers try to uh, propose certain ideas where poverty can be reduced, or the problem of poverty can be addressed. So this analytical process for the children is given when they are young itself, and they themselves take it up. Because when a child looks at another person who is poor, the society has somewhat taught the child to look down on that person who is poor. But here, the child is taught to do something about that poor person, to do something for that poor person. And here, a lot is done. A lot is done. And I have shared last week how the finance ministers in many of the parliaments have come out with strategies to help the people in their own area, poor people in their own area. And I have shared a lot of children's parliaments already, and they take the survey of the number of poor people in their neighborhood, and they take the survey of people, the beggars living in their street, in the urban area. They make a list of it, and they try to do something for them. And they take the list of the poor children, children from the poor families, and they start, paying the fees, help them to study, try to organize something for those families, so that they can come out of this poverty and all that. But when we talk about the adult parliaments, they have a lot of poverty eradication programs which we promote. And in the context of Kudumbushri in Kerala, already it's a major success. It's one of the most successful program in the world, where poverty has been reduced to a very high level. And children are taught on that, and they take initiatives, understand poverty, the cause for poverty, the impacts of poverty, and try to help the people in their neighborhood to come out of poverty and help the children of those poor families to meet their needs. And I can share a lot of experiences, lots of success stories where the children have done helps to the poor children. I remember in one of the parliaments, I had gone for a review meeting. So at that time, they were having their regular meeting, their weekly meeting. So I was there watching what is going on, just witnessing what was going on. And towards the fag end of the meeting, the facilitator, the speaker announced, now the finance minister will collect the membership fees. So each one, went and gave some money to that finance minister. And he was taking note of it, who has given what is the money and all that. That all happened. Then at the end of it, I was, after the meeting was over, I wanted to have certain discussion with them. I said, I want to have some clarifications from you. Okay, shall we have some time more discussing? They said, okay. Then I asked them, see, you are collecting membership fee for the children parliament. How do you feel that? How do you decide to do that? They said, see, we need fund for our parliament. So we ourselves have decided to collect membership fee. So every meeting, every minister has to give something or other. The amount is not fixed. They can give anything, whatever they want to contribute. Then I asked them, see, when you collect membership fee like this, some children may not be able to pay because they may be poor. So when other children pay the fees, the poor children may feel bit psychologically down. They may feel inferior to the others. How do you manage with this? And they beautifully said, the membership fee is just free. Anyone can pay, those who want to pay, and anyone need not pay. So it's free. And even the amount what has to be paid, it is up to the member. Sometimes 1 week that person may pay 5 rupees, the other week that same person may pay 2 rupees, doesn't matter. It's only a collection we have, but there is no any rule. And if somebody doesn't pay, nobody questions them. Nobody asks them. So we say very clearly in the meeting that if anyone is not able to pay that fees, do not worry about it. Feel free about it. Only those who want to contribute, can do it. So it is a free thing. So the child, a poor child doesn't feel, need not feel that I don't contribute anything for this. Now, I asked, what do you do with this money, what you collect? And they listed so many things, and they gave me the list also what they have done so far. What, they were trying to help the poor children with buying books, notebooks, pen, pencil, and in one case they were even paying the fees of a child and all that. Then I saw one small child, maybe around 6.5 years or something like that, was also contributing when the speaker announced. And the way she caught up and went and gave, and the way she came back and took the place, it was impressing. I was very much impressed by the way the child, behaved. Then I asked the child, which class you are studying? The child said, I'm studying first standard. I am going to go for the second standard now. It was during the summer vacation. Oh, I see, you're going to go to the second standard. Now, you paid some money. Who gave you that money? I asked. She said, see, my parents give me, when I go to the school, they give me every day some little money. And I save some of that money and I contribute here. Oh, I see. When you contribute here, this money will be utilized for some other purpose. For it will be given to somebody else. How do you feel about it? And how will your parents feel? That child said, see, I give out of my own free will. I feel it's my duty to help my own members here, those who are poor. It's my duty. If I don't pay, who else will pay for them? Oh, I see. Okay. Now, will not your parents ask you, if you're going to see, they are giving you this little money for your own expenses when you go to the school to buy some toffees and some sweets or some this or some that. But if you're going to give it to somebody else, will not your parents ask you about it? And the child said, so they don't ask. And they cannot ask also. Once they are given the money to me, it is mine. And I can use it the way I want it. They cannot ask me what I do with that money. But they have the right to ask me if I misuse the money, if I use that money for wrong purposes. A child of 6 years old having a very good clarity about the money business. And her duty to contribute towards somebody who is poor, living in the same neighborhood. And she feels it is a duty. How wonderful it is, no? And this is what the children parliament ministers learn and do. And it may be a little thing what they do, small contribution, but emotionally and mentally, it matters a lot. And it gets into their subconscious mind that they have a duty towards somebody else. And that sense of duty, when they grow up, when they grow to adulthood, reflects differently in the society. And that's what is said here by Aishnava. If somebody does something unwanted things, don't think it has come from anywhere else. It has come from the plate of the hungry and the clothes of the unclothed. It is a theft. The child learned that. The children in children parliaments, they learn that. And they learn to contribute the maximum towards the unfortunate children in their neighborhood. So this may not be a big thing like, poverty eradication program as such, but for the adult parliament, we have well experimented poverty eradication program. And we say within 6 months of proper functioning of people parliament, poverty can be eradicated. And perhaps if there is some other chance where we can give more explanation on that, because some of you may like to know how poverty can be eradicated 100% through this neighborhood people parliament. That is very true, and I will be really happy to explain more with experimented models. Now coming back to the second one, zero hunger. Again, I want to quote this. The world produces enough for everyone's need, but not enough for the greed of few. That is very true. We have certain section of the society in the world with lot of affluence, lot of money, lot of wealth, a lot of food being wasted and all that. And one side, we see people hungry, no food to eat. And even if they have food, it is not a nutritious food. Malnutrition. It's a very big menace. It's a very big menace because this imbalance, one side accumulation, one side lack of food, basic needs, it's a it's a crime against humanity. Accumulation is a crime against humanity. And that's why when I used to talk to the field animators, or when I have the seminars, I say, if you're going to buy something, what you need more than what you need for today, then you are accumulating. Because, as I said earlier, the world produces enough for every living thing, every human being. So no one need to go hunger. No one need to go hungry. But why there is scarcity? Why these people are hungry? Why they don't have food? It's because something else happens in the market. That is accumulation. Some people, those who got more money, want to buy the things for 1 week, for 1 month. And in some case, some products are cheap now. So we will have it buy it for another 3 months. Then when everyone starts accumulating like that, the scarcity happens. When the scarcity happens, the price rises. When the price rises, it becomes costly, so that with people with the less income, very little income, cannot buy that, and they go hungry. So again, hunger is not a natural phenomena. It's a man-made, created one. Because some people's accumulation for somebody else is lacking. And children are trained on that. Children are taught about how these people become hungry without food. What causes that? What is the background towards all this? Then the children parliaments say, okay, it is connected with another goal of SDG, that is responsible production and the responsible consumption. And children start learning to consume things responsibly, so that they don't become the cause of creating scarcity in the market. That awareness itself is a very big awareness among the children parliament ministers. And when they grow to adulthood, they will realize the need for not accumulating things for themselves because they have money. No. Some way say for our daily convenience, we cannot go to the market every day, so we buy it for one week or 2 weeks. No. It is market is available everywhere now. And even from your home, you can just order online nowadays. But we can do it every day, so that scarcity doesn't happen. So again, when we talk about hunger, food is produced enough. And in some cases, it is accumulated and it is wasted. Some people go hungry and remain hungry. And children are taught on this, and they try to understand the problem, and they try to feed. And many children parliaments we have, they take the list of the people in their areas, and they start feeding them. They collect food and feed them. They buy food product and feed them. And I was sharing even last week the same thing, because it's all interconnected. So we need not even go for repetition of the same thing. So the children can very successfully intervene in helping those people, those who are hungry, to have some decent food in their own neighborhood. So it is not only learning process, but it is also practicing. We know it's by nature, children are very generous. They share things with each other. So we enhance these positive factors of the children, so that they keep on sharing with others. And we come to the third one, that is reduced inequality. When we talk about reducing inequality, I have a small doubt why the United Nations put it as a reduced inequality instead of eradicating inequality. So to bring the inequality gap lower and lower, but I would say eradicate it. There should not be any inequality at all. So we create an awareness to children. What is inequality? Now, social inequality is there. Economical inequality is there. Then religious inequality is there. There are those so many inequalities. From the young age, the children are taught on these inequalities. And these are the major three inequalities the children have to deal with. Because inequality, it is not a factor which, which is apparent in the sense on a materialistic manner. but it is from the mind. The inequality, the practicing inequality is from the mindset. So the children are taught where the inequality starts. For example, when we have social inequality, we talk about casteism. Where does it start? If I have 2 hands, if somebody else has 4 hands, then we can see that. Okay, this person has got 2 hands and that other person has got 4 hands. Inequality is there. It can be witnessed. But when there is a caste, can you see that? Caste. One person belonging to a high caste, another person belonging to a low caste. Can you just see the difference between these two and say, no. So where it happens in the mind. So we teach the children, it is in your mind which starts inequality. Now, if you start treating everyone equal to you, that's all, it disappears. So the inequality in the society it starts from our individual self. So the child understands, oh, that means there is no any casteism as such. It is on treating people that it is practiced. Then I should not treat anyone below me. Then that child learns caste has no meaning at all. And it has no any valid reason to exist. And the same thing with the religious inequalities. We talk about, our faith and that and this God is true God and that God is not true God and their faith is that, paganism that and no. The children are taught that everyone is equal. Everyone has their own freedom to think what they want to think, which is correct. And this is the way to think right things as a right thing and a wrong thing as a wrong thing, so that the children grow with inequality, practicing equality in their neighborhood with every child. And inherently children, when they are young, they don't practice, they don't see all these inequalities. They don't see it and they don't practice it. It is we, the parents or the society at large, keep on teaching them that you belong to this section or you belong to this religion or you belong to this economical status and this status, that and this and all that. And the children, as they grow, they learn. I remember very well one example where we had a fantastic example where the children would stand as one. It was in 2002, 18 years back, in Chengalpet district. And it was initial stage for us to start children parliaments there. And there was one NGO there who is working, who was working among the Dalits there in those villages in Chengalpet district. And I trained those staff there on children's parliament about in 2000. And they started children's parliaments in their own villages. And they are predominantly working for the Dalit villages and to uplift them, economically and socially and all. It's a very well-known NGO. And when they started children's parliament, in our villages, how it is. There will be a main village, then there will be a colony. So these staff were working among the colony people. And most of the time they don't go to that main villages, and even if they go, the people are very indifferent towards them and all that. But when we started children parliament, we told them very strictly that the children parliament has to involve every child, include every child. You cannot separate them according to the caste. You may be doing so many things for the upliftment of Dalits, various programs, but for children parliament, when it comes to children parliament, all the children living in the particular neighborhood has to be part of it. And this was one of the very strict condition which we said, because we talk about inclusiveness. And when the staff started doing it, all the children go to the same school. But when they come to the village, when they are there in the place where people live, automatically they get separated, you know. So when we started the children parliament, many children of so-called the high caste people were not sending their children to the children parliament, because the staff were known to work among the Dalit. And I had a special training for the staff to approach every member of the community, irrespective of their caste or religion, treat everyone equal, and how to build relationship and all that. But in spite of all the efforts, the people, the so-called high caste people said, no, we will not send our children with Dalit children. So when the staff told me, see, we find it very difficult how to go about it. Then I started visiting those villages directly myself. I started talking to those people. Said, see, this is for the children. After all, children go to the school, same school, and they study together and all. And even for these practices where they come together to learn things, it will be good that if they come together. And the so-called high caste people said, no. Whatever it is there in the school or whatever it is, but we will not send our children for the children parliament, because definitely it will upset the whole community. I was very much upset with that answer. And I was trying, you know, I visited a number of days and tried to talk to them, but nothing happened. Then I said, okay, go ahead. Whichever children come, with them, you start. They started. When they started, the children started collecting the other children, you know, those who belong to the high caste, coming to the parliaments. And you know what happened? And the parents of those high caste children started punishing their children for joining this group. Why did you go there? You went to the colony. Why? For what? And all that. Said, no, we children are, you know, playing together and all. No. So one boy who belonged to that high caste, who was beaten by his father because he went to the children parliament, told the other children when they went to the school that because he joined them in the village, in the colony for the children parliament, he was beaten by his parents. So these children, in the next meeting, discussed about this. And they passed the resolution. They said, we treat every child equal, and we have the right to treat every child equal, and every child has the right to be treated equal. And in this case, we have to write a letter to that father who beat his son. So they wrote a letter to that father saying, see, we children have the right to be treated equally, and every child has the right to make friendship with every child. And because your son joined us and you have beaten him, and we feel very sad. And they addressed him, you know, as uncle. Anbulla uncle avargalukku. And the letter I read that letter, it was written like that. To dear uncle. That man received the letter and got upset. These children calling me uncle? What nonsense. Oh, that he was making noise and he started beating that son again and again and that and this and all that. And these children had sent a letter to the Panchayat president also. The same copy and a covering letter saying that, see, this is how it has happened. We have written a letter to this father and we are informing you that we have sent a letter. If something happens tomorrow, please take care that untoward events do not happen in our village. So the Panchayat president also was aware what was going on. And he was also a bit upset that children taking up these caste issues. And he did not know how to go about it. And there was a teacher, a retired teacher in that village, and Panchayat president called that teacher and started discussing about it. And the teacher seemed to have told him, see, it's a very serious issue. The children have taken it up. If the children take it up to a higher level, it will bring a very, very negative impact to the village. If the children do not take it up, if the adult take it up, that can be managed anyhow. But if the children take it up, it will be a very big issue. Then that Panchayat president went to that father who beat his son, said, see, let us close it here. The only way to close it, you go to the parliament meeting, ask for pardon from that members and tell them he will not stop his son to be part of it anymore. Otherwise, the children may take it to a higher level. And there was no way out. And the man had to come to the children parliament to ask pardon and promised the parliament that his son will join the parliament from then onwards. And seeing that, many children from the high caste section of the village started forming themselves into children parliament, and casteism among the children there were completely closed, completely stopped. It happened about 18 years back. And if children parliament decides to take up issues like this, casteism can be completely eradicated. And we have seen that in Kerala. A few months back, I read the article about 2 lakh children have decided not to mention their caste in their certificates, school certificate. I don't know any of you have come across that. So these are the practices where the children parliament can promote among themselves to reduce inequality. It's one of the biggest achievement I feel, because the progress of the country today in India, it's held back because of this casteism and communalism. If people can come out of these caste differences and the religious differences, India can be definitely a superpower. And children parliaments functions very successfully towards this. Definitely, if the children parliament are formed the way we want them to be formed, and if they are trained the way they are to be trained, poverty in future can be eradicated, and there won't be any person going to bed hungry, and there won't be any inequality. An equal society with the real care and concern for everyone as one family can be, dreamt of. So this is what I wanted to share with you today, and a lot of success stories are there, but due to a shortage of time, I don't want to repeat certain things which has been already told, and some of them will come in future also, because there are other other ministries which are very much connected to this. So I stop here. If there is any doubts, any clarifications, please come forward.